After 55, the biggest threat to your life isn't aging, it's drifting. You can still be helpful and busy and responsible in all the things, doing all the right things, and still be wasting your own time. And this is not a time of life that we should be wasting. These 7 things that we're going to talk about today are the quiet reason that many women feel flat in retirement. You know, I used to think that freedom meant having fewer obligations, but even in retirement, I found myself carrying old expectations and the weight of everything I had done and accomplished in my life. And finally, I think when I hit 50, maybe 55, I thought to myself, who am I designing this life for? You know, I turned 50 in 2015, so I was 53 in 2018 when I retired. And while everyone would look at me and you might be thinking in your head, wow, you were young to retire, I had worked since I was 14 years old, doing a myriad of different jobs all through high school, all through college, working. I was a college athlete and trying to maintain grades for a scholarship. I worked every summer. I carried the load and the burden of my own financial responsibilities since I was 17 years old. My mom was a single mom. She was the best of the best, and I mean that sincerely. She gave me more things in terms of love and how to love and confidence and how to be confident and not cocky. She gave me the drive to stay curious and engaged. She gave me interpersonal skills and relationships. She also pushed me really hard to be a worker. So when I retired, I thought, what do I do now? How do I stop questioning these old patterns of my go for it, get busy, as my mom would call it, my ING life, right? So that was the life of working, shopping, playing, teaching, learning, all the INGs. She used to say to me, your life is full of INGs. You need to find a way to be settled. Unfortunately, she passed away before I retired, so she didn't have an opportunity to coach me through this phase of life. But there are things that we should talk about, and there's things that we should talk to each other about, things that we should think and reflect on, and I want to share some of those with you today. Being needed at this stage of life is not the same as being fulfilled. Usefulness is no longer tied to worth when you end up in retirement. Many women confuse usefulness with purpose, especially after a lifetime of responsibility. And if you've had a lifetime of responsibility, not only for yourself, but for the care and concern and compassion for others, you hit this phase and all you know is usefulness. And I'm telling you that being needed is not the same as being fulfilled. And figuring out what is it that's going to fill your bucket and make you feel fulfilled is something that you have to really think about with intention, really reflect on. Rest in retirement will bring clarity that will help you with that. And especially if you had a busy career and you raised a bunch of kids or one kid or no kids, or, you just were busy up until this point, rest is important, but presence is going to matter more now than ever. And how you're showing up is going to provide you more fulfillment, not only for yourself, but for the people you're showing up with, than being needed. The second thing is, wanting more doesn't mean you're ungrateful. That is a really difficult concept, I think, for women to handle. Very difficult to wrap your head around, because I don't know about you, and depending on your age and where you grew up and, who raised you, wanting more than what you have was never something that I was taught was okay. Be happy with what you have. Be pleased with what you get. Never ask for more. Your desires don't expire after the age of 50 or 55 or when you move into retirement. Your desires and wanting more is absolutely allowed. The thing that I would challenge you with is, if you believe that it's allowed and you know that you desire more, what are you doing about it? What are you doing to make this season count? So this idea, the second point of wanting more doesn't mean you're ungrateful, is a really big thing to put your mind around. This idea that this life, this one life, is your life. And what are you going to do with it to make your mark? What are you going to do with it to make a mark that is part of legacy? What are you going to do with it that's fulfilling for you each day, like we talked about in the first point? And how are you going to wrap your head around this idea that your desires are important to the next phase of your life? If you're ready to take charge and you're ready to move into the next chapter, click the link below. We have the 6 steps to kickstart your retirement. It's a great download and it's free and it's there for you guys to take a look at. The third thing I want to talk about is at this stage of the game, hear me when I say this, carrying everyone else is optional now. And you might say to yourself, boy, in what world could that possibly be true? I'm in the middle of, my aging parents and my children and perhaps even grandchildren. And I feel like I'm carrying more people than I've ever carried before. And my question to you would be, is that by choice? Have you decided to be everyone's everything at every moment? And where are you on your boundaries in that? And how healthy is it for you to continue? Managing everyone's feelings is a choice. Mel Robbins wrote this great book called Let Them, and I will put it in the link below, and I highly recommend taking a read on it. But this idea of over-functioning in every relationship you're in, over-functioning for your adult children or your grandchildren or your aging parents is detrimental to your health. Letting others grow up is an important part of their life plan. Even though it might be hard for you, letting them grow and make mistakes and stub their toe and talk it through with you without you managing and owning their feelings and problems is a healthy way to move forward. I think about a conversation I just had with my daughter. She's 29. She's getting married this year in June. And she called me one day and she said, Mom, I have friends with kids now, and I watch them optimize every moment of their child's life. And I just want you to know that you did not do that for us. There were things we had to do, whether we wanted to do them or not, because they were the right things to do for our family or for my sisters or for you or for Dad. And they weren't always things I wanted to do, but because of the values that we instilled in each other, we didn't optimize every moment of every day for that individual because sometimes the family unit took precedence. And she said, I really want to thank you for that. Because at first, when she started the conversation, I thought, oh boy, here comes a criticism. But it wasn't. She was saying was making me go to my sister's track meet, lacrosse game, soccer game, whatever it was, making me attend that because that's what families do, was more important to my values as I'm growing now and is helping me think about how I'm going to rear my children. And that was a really, really nice message. The fourth thing, the life that worked for you before may be a waste of time for you now. And what I mean by that was what once helped you survive or succeed may be quietly limiting you in this stage. And I think about a personal story for myself. I worked in a Fortune 200 financial services company for 35 years, slugging it out, moving around the country, breaking through the glass ceilings to be able to hand down keys to the next generation, all the things, no matter what it took, all the things. But what that took in terms of my health and my wellness was the zipper on of the armor every day, was the closing off of the heart, was the limiting of joy or emotional reactions, because I just didn't have the platform. I didn't have agency to do that in my everyday, in my corporate world. Leaving that world and coming into retirement took me a long time to shed that armor, to open my heart, to consider joy and joyful moments, to consider, laughing loud and being, gregarious. Because when I was coming up through corporate America, The louder you were as a woman, the more you were labeled, right? And believe me, I spent plenty of time being plenty loud. And if any of my colleagues are watching this, they'll say, yeah, you did. But there was always a limit. And I think the role that I carried from my earlier decades is no longer serving me. Habits that I had formed back then for survival are no longer beneficial to who I am and who I want to become as I age through the next 20 years. Automatic responses of, yes, I can do that, or I'm your girl, I got that, I can get that done. That auto response is not serving me anymore. It's not filling my bucket. It's not helping me reach my capacity. It's helping me reach capacity, but not necessarily my capacity. The fear that I always had of disappointing anybody in my equation, whether it was my children, my husband, my teams, my peers, my bosses, my CEO, whatever it was, that fear of disappointing others is not something that I'm carrying forward into retirement now, if there's something that's super important to me. The fifth thing is avoiding stillness is costing you clarity. Busyness often keeps us from asking deeper questions. And it's actually asking those questions that will shape your years ahead. So being busy, to stay away from the reflective moments of asking yourself the hard questions is stopping the future of the shape of your retirement. Discomfort in this stage of the game will invite truth. Truth can be scary, but we can't fear the truth. Avoiding some of these thoughts or reflections really delays your growth. And if I can leave anything with you today, it's that this is your time to grow. This is your time to shine. And this is your time to continue to craft the life that's important to you. The next thing is an unplanned day is rarely a peaceful one. And I know I'll get pushback on this. And I pushed back on Mark on this when we first retired because he was very much a structure and routine person. Get up at this time, do these 3 things, eat at this time, go to bed at this time, do these things before bed, the whole 9 yards. And I get it. Days blur together easily. And what you don't want is a string of blurry days that you can't remember one remarkable thing that happened. Default routines will start to take over. And I will ask you this, leave a comment below. Are your default routines the ones that are healthiest for you? Are your default habits the ones that you want to continue? I had a conversation with 2 of my daughters this week about habits because it's the beginning of a new year. Everyone's talking about routines and habits and goals and New Year's resolutions and the whole 9 yards. And while I'm in favor of all of that being a jump start, it's nothing unless you continue it. So what is it about your habits and your daily routines that you want to stick with, that are healthy for you, or that you want to change and that you want to transform as you go through this phase? The last thing is pushing through fatigue is not a strength anymore. Nobody will give you an award for being the most tired person in the room, the most stressed out person in the room, the person who's done more than anybody else in the room. You're not getting the award. Fatigue is information from your body and your mind that you need to make a change. Your body has changed. If you're over 50, if you're over 55, if you're over 60 or beyond, your body as a woman has changed. Full stop. Rest is going to support longevity for sure. So pushing through fatigue and being the warrior, the worn out warrior, doesn't win you any medals. Health will enable freedom for you at this stage of the game. So again, what are those habits, those routines, those needs that you have, whether they're in hydration or nutrition or sleep, that you're not focusing on because you're pushing through fatigue on meaningless endeavors? And I say that with kindness because I do it. I've done it. I'm trying not to do it. I'm trying to do it less. But it's hard when you're the go-to. You're everybody's go-to. That feels kind of good once in a while to say, oh, they need me. They need me on a call. They need me to do this. They need me to fly there. They need me to buy this. They need me to help them with the following 3 or 4 things. But just remember the first point, being needed is not always the most fulfilling thing in the world, especially at this stage of the game. You are the priority. Not a lot of times in your life that you can say that. You are the priority. What is it that you can do to make your days, your weeks, your months, and your years ahead the best they can be for you? Challenge yourself. Write things down. Put a call to action. This week, I'm going to list 3 things. Doesn't have to be 10, doesn't have to be 20. They don't even have to be life-changing. This week, I'm going to wake up every morning and I'm going to drink 12 ounces of water before I have my cup of tea or coffee. I'm going to hydrate my system that's been dehydrated overnight in that one way, and it's the one change I'm going to make this week. I'm a huge fan of the change one process. Each week, pick one thing to change, and over time, they compound. I'm going to challenge you guys to do that because this is your life. Let's get to some of the questions that the team put together from some of you, our viewers. The first one is, hi from the Gold Coast of Australia. This is from Janine Dance 102. Could you please drop a video on personal care that you, Jody, do and for women on aging, like hair care, skin care, makeup, healthy eating, exercise, and self-image? And what do you talk about in Bible study? So this is an interesting question, so I'll try to break it down. Hair care, skin care, makeup, healthy eating, and exercise. I have been asked a lot of questions. My hair is not so great today, not going to lie. I need a haircut. But hair care, skin care, and makeup all change when you turn 50 and older. I was guided to no longer use powders on my face, but always use like cream-based makeups, whether it's a foundation or a blusher or an eye makeup. I wear more makeup during video days than I do most of my life. So for those of you who see me in my real life, playing golf or going to Bible study, I don't always look like this unless I come from a video day. The healthy eating piece, Mark and I really got serious about it about 5 years ago when we flipped to the Mediterranean diet, and we do stick to that mostly all the time. I've limited my drinking significantly. Mark stopped drinking January 1st, 2025 altogether. So he's had a whole year because we just no longer felt good. So I guess in that wrap of skincare, makeup, hair, and healthy eating, I would say listen to your body. I wear the Aura ring, which gives me indications on, how am I sleeping? How's my hydration level? How's my pulse rate? How's my heart rate variability? What's my average resting heart rate? All the things, body temperature, all the things. I use that as a guide. Second part of the question is, what do you talk about in Bible study? It's different every year. Last year, we took the Sermon on the Mount, which is in Matthew, and we spent 8 weeks dissecting the Sermon on the Mount. And when we started, I thought there's no way we're going to get 8 weeks into this. There is so much richness in that segment, that verse in the Bible, the Sermon on the Mount, that we went overtime every session when we talked about it, when we investigated, when we broke it down word by word. When we translated it into today's world, how does it relate? It was really eye-opening for me, and I thoroughly enjoy my Bible study, ladies. Okay, next question. Can you recommend a good book to read on the Mediterranean diet? Oh, interesting. Okay, 2 things I brought in because I did see that question ahead of time. I don't know if you can see this, but this is the book that Mark and I use, and you can see all the tabs and things that we pull out. This is America's Test Kitchen, the Complete Mediterranean Cookbook. I find it to be probably our go-to resource for Mediterranean recipes and the Mediterranean diet. I had an opportunity to meet this lady, Terry Walters, in Connecticut and did a cooking class with her. And she's very, very into clean eating. So she has a book called Clean Start, and it's 100 recipes to inspire you to eat clean. And I've enjoyed, you can see all the pages that are turned down here. I've enjoyed a lot of the side dishes. Like if Mark prepares the meat, I can go into Terry's book and pull out, something with garbanzo beans and like cucumbers and black olives and artichokes and, create a quinoa salad or something that is a clean eating part of our meal. So those are two things that I would recommend. Okay, let's see. What if you and your spouse are not on the same page, ... at all? And that comes from Annie 855. Annie, I get it. There are days Mark and I are not on the same page at all. I won't say that it goes more than a day or two or three that we're not on the same page. I've had to really practice patience in retirement because I wasn't used to being together with him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And all of a sudden little things became big things and we both had to kind of hit the reset. Communication is the key to that. Patience is the second key to that. And we always start with this phrase that goes like this, I would never say or do anything to purposely hurt your feelings. However, I need you to know how I'm feeling right now. And then it just comes out as clear as day. I think when you phrase it that way, no matter what you say, not that you can say really mean things, but no matter what you say, is phrased with the compassion from your heart. I would never do or say anything to purposely hurt your feelings in any way. However, here's how I'm feeling. And that has really been able to help us. Okay, so if this conversation resonated with you, our next video is going to go even deeper. Take a look at this. Rethink traditional retirement. Our top tips for a happier retirement. Enjoy.